When it comes to gacha games, there are few words that players fear more than power creep. When players spend weeks of saved premium resources and sometimes real-life money to purchase characters and their signature equipment, you want that value to last. Nothing drops the value of a character faster than a new one that does everything the old did, but better. It's a tale as old as time when it comes to games in this genre. Strong characters sell. With the recent release of Jin C and her absolutely mind-boggling damage per screenshot and absurd showcases, many have been asking one question: has she already power crept the game? Our goal today is to take a deep dive into Wuthering Waves' combat mechanics, damage calculations, and team building to answer that question. Have we already seen heavy power creep in just a single patch? To start the discussion, it's important that we review the combat mechanics of Wuthering Waves to see what exactly every character can bring to the table. More specifically, we'll be reviewing just how characters deal damage. Characters have four major components of their kits: their basic attack, which is always available with no cooldown or resource cost, their heavy attack, which costs a regenerating resource called stamina, their resonance skill, an ability that can be freely cast with cooldown, and their resonance liberation, which requires resonance energy built up from using any of the aforementioned abilities in combat. Utilizing these abilities in combat is simple. All you need to do is press or hold a button. Additional complexity in combat comes through a unique mechanic called a forte bar, which when built up and used, amplifies some part of a character's kit to deal additional damage, heal the team, or buff allies. A character's forte bar is typically the biggest emphasis for their kit. As you can see, there are a lot of different ways to deal damage to an enemy, and each character does a lot more damage with one of these moves compared to others. The end result is that many characters have incredibly unique styles of play that heavily emphasize one type of damage or ability over others. Characters like Jian are heavily centered around building up their resonance liberation for damage and grouping, Yinlin is focused on AoE off-field damage through her forte bar, and Jinshi is all about rotating through her team to build up her forte bar and deal massive resonance skill damage. From what we've seen from the limited releases, Kuro is always bringing something new to the table. Their potential to design well-balanced characters and varied gameplay is incredibly high for one reason: damage percent. When damage calculation in the game takes into account unique bonuses to all of these different combat moves on top of a general damage percent, the devs can clearly outline what stats and bonuses are the best for certain characters. This additional balancing lever, while potentially complicated for newer players, actually removes potential power creep from the game. Let me explain. Jian is a character that centers around heavy attack damage. His entire resonance liberation, including its enhanced version, deals heavy attack damage. His signature weapon also gives a very large buff to heavy attack damage. The best ways to boost his damage, aside from typical attack and critical stats, is to give him arrow damage and heavy attack damage. This means that a typical Jian will find themselves slotting in a Sierra Gale Echo Sonata set, which grants up to 40% additional arrow damage. If there's ever a time where Jian is falling behind on overall DPS compared to later releases, Kuro can simply utilize all of these different stat levers to design a new Sonata set or even a 4-cost Echo that emphasizes his kit even more. Instead of 40% arrow damage activated on an intro skill, we might see 60% heavy attack damage activated on Resonance Liberation. This heavy emphasis on a specific damage bonus in design, as opposed to generalized elemental bonuses we've seen in games like Genshin Impact, allows the devs to target outdated characters with specialized buffs that don't impact the balance of the rest of the game. There's even the less appealing option of a new weapon that is an improvement over his signature. I personally don't think Kuro will go with this weapon option, as we've seen each limited weapon thus far has been very specific to a character's kit and mechanics. Moving on, a character's echoes and weapons are only one part of the equation when it comes to their success. Wuthering Waves' team building is another important factor in mitigating power creep, primarily due to its Concerto Energy system. Concerto Energy, built up from taking offensive or defensive actions with an on-field character, allows that character to use their outro skill. which typically provides massive buffs or damage, and swap to another character when their bar is full. The switched in Resonator will then cast their intro skill, and generate some type of resource in their kit or speed up their rotations. Intro skills are key to streamlining a character's rotation and maximizing their damage, while outro skills provide some of the largest buffs in the game. While some characters like Verena provide very generalized outro skill buffs that can be utilized on any team, characters like Tao Chi are very specific in what type of damage they boost. The end result is that Jin C's highest potential damage on her key ability is found not by slotting her with the full 5-star team, but by using her with what many think of as a low-tier character in Tao Chi on her teams. This damage system and its design has allowed a 5-star limited character to bring unpopular 4-star characters into viability at the highest levels. That's incredible. Just think about the potential in the rest of the roster as new limited characters release. However, the opposite can take place as well. Using Jian and his damage profile, it would be incredibly easy for Kuro to release a new sub DPS that enhances arrow and heavy attack damage to bolster his teams and regain any lost viability. The devs have already shown a willingness to design very specific buffs as seen from Yinlin's outro skill, which frequently sees use even if a team comp can't fully utilize all parts of its buff. In short, outro skills as a mechanic add a huge amount of depth with every character's release. A new character can easily bring old ones into viability by either leveraging older characters' buffs or introducing new buffs to existing DPS characters. We're still waiting for limited characters that can fully utilize buffs from characters like Yinlin, Sanhua, and Johnson. With 4 different damage types for a character to specialize in and 6 different attributes, Kuro can design their upcoming roster in ways that simply make more characters viable as it grows. We've already seen this in action with how Jin C elevates characters like Yan Wu and Tao Chi. That is reverse power creep in the best way possible. My advice for any player when it comes to limited banners and characters is simple. Pull for who you want. Kuro has clearly displayed a mastery over combat and game design by providing themselves all of these different levers that they'll need to balance the game for the long run. While its systems are undoubtedly more complex than other games in its genre, this complexity opens up the door to specialized kits and interactions that ensures the longevity of its entire roster. Pull with confidence. Pull for gameplay. Pull knowing that power creep is something easily managed in Wuthering Waves. This game is only going to get better with age.